Welcome to the Talking Hats HD podcast. I'm Dale, that's Harish, and we are the Talking Hats. We're going to lead things off here with some NBA playoff talk. Lots of things going on this week in those last two series, the Western and Eastern Conference Finals. So we're going to recap, first of all, the West and how that all went down, and then get into our predictions for Game 7 in the Eastern Conference. So Harish, go ahead and kick things off for us.
We expected that to be a sweep, but unfortunately, Luka pulled it off a little bit, and I thought maybe they could have, it was a glimmer of light, but nah, Golden State's too powerful. I mean, they're just put together really well, and you can try to stop them, but this is why when you said in the beginning of the season that they're going to win the championship, this is why they are a championship team. It doesn't matter who's it doesn't matter who scores the 30 points, doesn't matter who scores the 20 points. They just want to win. And when you have that kind of mentality, it is very difficult to beat a team like that. And it kind of helps when you have really good defense too. So they're not just a fun run and gun team. So it's going to be, and that's why Game 7 is very important in the the Celtics and the Heat series, because if the Heat go, they stand no chance. They stand no, even with Eric Spoelstra, they stand no chance.
Yeah, we'll get into all that whole breakdown. Yeah. I definitely got some thoughts on that series, but to give Golden State their due, I mean, and to put some respect on Luka's name, it's Luka and some role players. Dinwiddie's hot and cold. He can be a solid player here and there. Jalen Brunson kind of emerged here in the playoffs, but like I mentioned on a previous show, he's a 16-point-a-game player. Like, that's who he really is. He got hot in the playoffs here, and he's going to get paid off that. I don't know if Dallas is going to pay him, but it's Luka and some role players, and he was able to hang in there with them. Every game pretty much was close. I think one game was a true blowout. I think might be. I don't know. There have been so many bad games in the playoffs. It's hard to put it all together.
They came back in the game that I think they blew out the Golden State Warriors. I think they came back in that one. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the Warriors came back. Yeah, they were getting. I think it was this last game maybe it's the game before where the Warriors are getting blown. It was the game before where the Warriors are getting blown out. That's the one the Mavericks won. But they were hanging in there, and even in that last game when things are starting to get out of hand, they came back towards the end. So you can see the kind of prowess that team has, and Dinwiddie is a nice complementary piece, but they don't have on that roster enough to get over that Golden State hump. The way the rest of the Western Conference stacks up as of right now, maybe they are in a position to be, a second round playoff team again, but they got to get a piece. And what were you about to say?
I was about to say, let's say if Kristaps Porzingis was healthy and they still traded for Dinwiddie and Bertans, how would that team fare up with the Golden State Warriors? I was kind of thinking about that. I was like, let's say if Porzingis was healthy and then they traded for Dinwiddie and Bertans, would that have kind of like helped Luka get over that hump? And I would say no, because it's like, because when you're thinking that, you're like, man, if they did have that one piece of the puzzle, would that have been, Kristaps? And then Dinwiddie was the guy who kind of, took a little bit of burden off of, Luka, but it kind of didn't show that because then I was like thinking, even if he was still in the picture, I don't think it would have mattered. I really wouldn't have thought. I mean, it may have been it may have been a little bit more closer than these blowouts. May have been a little bit closer, but I don't think they would have pulled it off either. So it was just something I was like thinking about. I was like,
speaking strictly of Kristaps as a player, just as a player, nothing else involved. Kristaps Porzingis was the guy that they needed, like that second piece. Him and Luka would have been enough to give the Warriors a better, maybe push to Game 7. Just as a player, Kristaps Porzingis is that good. But I don't think they liked playing together, and that's the issue. So if they didn't make the trade, or if they were able to pull something off where they got Dinwiddie and Bertans and still had Kristaps Porzingis, I don't think it would have been enough because they don't like each other. And chemistry is important. I don't know 100%. Who doesn't like who. I don't know what the catalyst behind that is, but to me, when watching them play, it was fairly obvious. And I see the same things kind of brewing on Golden State. And that's why I mentioned on a previous show that Klay might not be there next season. But I think the success and just the history will prevail in the beef that I see brewing between Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson gets frustrated with Jordan Poole at times because Jordan Poole, very solid player, but he can be a wild card at times. Late in the game that they lost, he drove the ball in when there was no reason to do so and lost the ball. He actually did it twice, but Draymond Green got the first one that happened. The second one, he lost the ball and they lost the possession. So he's a wild card at times. He'll make that clutch shot, but that stuff irks Klay Thompson. He'll stand on the outside like this with his hands up waiting for the ball, and Jordan Poole's dribbling around. That's not the Golden State Warriors system. They move the ball. They don't go out there and dribble around, but he's such a young and talented piece that they're going to keep him.
Right.
Klay has an injury history. So if it came down to it, he said, look, him or me, they'll probably choose Poole at this point in their careers. And that might be a scorching hot take, but I think if it came down to a choice between the two, I think they would choose Jordan Poole because of his energy. Klay, at this point in his career, he doesn't have that burst that he used to have. It'll come up in glimpses, but as far as a full game stretch or even a stretch of games, that Klay Thompson doesn't exist anymore. Or maybe I'm beating him up because he's coming off an injury this season. Maybe he'll come back next season and be Klay again. I don't know. But
it's hard to tell.
As of right now, I think if they have to make the choice, they choose Poole.
I mean, because I saw that play that Jordan Poole did, and Klay Thompson was wide open. I mean,
that stuff irks him to no end.
And the thing is, it should irk him because at the end of the day, let's say if it was a close game, right? That three could have made a huge difference. It could have been winning or losing by that much. And especially in the playoffs where everything is contested, everything is very, very tight. A rookie cannot make that. Like, he has to understand his role. His time will come. And he has to understand that Klay already has a ring. He's a veteran. And you have to kind of respect that. And it's almost showing a little bit exactly. And getting one itself is hard. Getting one itself is hard. Getting 2 and 3 is even more difficult because you're doing it continuously. So that young buck needs to take a step back and kind of look at himself and be like, my time will come.
Well, see, I think if Steve Kerr saw his play as an issue, then he would have reined him in by now. I don't think he wants to change the way he plays because he brings a different dynamic to that team. Like I said, he doesn't fit what they've normally done. But for some reason, I think Steve Kerr I'm not going to say encourages it. I don't think he encourages it, but I also don't think he does anything to ring that in because his energy level is so high. And so if you tell him, hey, back it up a little bit, you might change his entire game. And I don't know that you want to do that. I don't know that you want to tell him to not take a shot because he hits big shots like out of nowhere. It's like, it's like Stephen Clay type shots. So I don't think you want to change. I don't think you want to say anything to him. And Klay just has to he hasn't been playing with them for 2 years. He's not used to that. He has to get used to it. They have to get used to each other. And Poole does have to find him on those looks instead of driving in and turning the ball over.
Well, and that's what
play your game, but don't be sloppy.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at is like you have a veteran presence, right? And that veteran is consistently making open shots in the playoffs. Consistently. He may miss 1 or 2, but when he's on, he's on. And that day he was on. So you got to find the open shooter. You got to find the hot hand. And it takes time. As you said, the chemistry needs to come and go. And Klay hasn't really played with them a lot, but
yeah, it's crazy that they're in the championship and they're a team that's still coming together.
Yeah. And that's scary too, because I think we can lead in with the Boston Celtics and the Heat now if you want, if you want to end up.
I was still waxing poetic on them in that series because, like I said, about them coming together, a guy like Kevon Looney, he has been balling in the playoffs. Yeah. And so he didn't have a huge role during the season. They were expecting Wiseman to come back at some point, and then they play small ball too. So Kevon Looney, I want to give him his roses too. That dude, he's been on the glass. He's like even getting nice easy buckets at the basket when Steph drives in and dishes. But before I switched gears from them, I wanted to ask you a question about Steph and if he gets his 4th ring. That's not even a myth at this point in my mind. But when he gets his 4th ring this season, the 2 legacies I want to question you about actually. Steph, and I'll finish the question on that, and then I'll get to the other one. Steph and his legacy and getting his 4th ring this year. People say, you know, if you don't want to say somebody's the greatest player of all time, you can say they're the greatest player of their era. I think Jordan is the greatest player of all time, and no question the greatest player of his era. I mean, if you're going to say that, and people say LeBron is the best player of this era. It's hard to say LeBron is the best player of his era. I mean, the best player of all time. People say he's the best of all time. It's hard to say he was the best player of all time, but I don't even think he's the best player of his era. Steph, I think, has taken that crown from him. And getting this fourth ring, where does that, what in your mind? Like, so, where does that, where are we at in that debate right now?
So you put a wrinkle in everything I always thought, like, Kobe, doesn't matter which era he played in, was the best in my opinion. After Jordan, for me, had to have been Kobe, because they played so much similar and they had that kind of thing, like, I'm getting it done, no ands, ifs, or buts. He has the rings to prove it. If
he didn't tear his Achilles, he gets that sixth and maybe seventh one.
Yep. No, so, and if Shaq didn't leave, you had
he didn't need Shaq.
No. What I'm saying, he probably didn't need Shaq. Yeah. But can you imagine? They could have been a double dynasty almost. Like, they could have just ruled the 2000s too. I mean, which they did for a while. But I mean, it could have continued. See, LeBron's legacy, in my opinion, now has to be questioned, because Seth Curry does not get his proper due. I was dogging him from the beginning. I was like, he doesn't handle, but he can shoot, he can do everything else. But when I sat down and looked at his game, you can't question it. You can't question where he's at. He has legitimately taken over that spot now. Legitimately taken over that spot. And if he gets, I mean, you're saying when he gets, I'm saying if he gets that ring, it doesn't matter if he does it or doesn't. He's already solidified his face. People,
as what?
As the, probably in this era, probably the best player in our era compared to LeBron, because LeBron, if you look at it, LeBron has what, 3 rings?
4.
He has 4 rings,
right? He got that
right?
cheap bubble ring with the Lakers.
Right.
It should have an asterisk, but
but the thing is, you have to give the thing is, you can probably agree with me or disagree with me on this one, is I'm very old school. You should stick with the one team and try to build that team to where it can get to. And if you can't see it moving forward, then maybe you can go on like Ray Bork did when he was with Boston for 20 some years, and he went with Colorado and got that and got the Stanley Cup. Okay, you can say, okay, he did what he could do with that individual team to the best of their capability, and they couldn't just get over the hump. And then when it came for him to leave, he did. I can't say that about LeBron, but I can say that about Steph. Steph has stayed there through the bad days, the good days, the bad days, and came back and won another ring and another ring. So if he wins this ring, you can't question anything. You just can't.
Yeah, and anybody who doubted his legacy, I mean, look at the team this year alone.
Yes.
Before Clay came back, they were, and before Steph got hurt, it was them and the Suns' best records in the league. So whether or not Clay came back, this team is probably still where they are. Yep. Without Clay. And this leads me into the next part of the question as far as legacies. And somebody who I'm not a huge fan of, I don't know how you really feel about him, but Kevin Durant, who came to the Warriors and got those 2 rings. They were a team who won the championship before him with Harrison Barnes in that same role. Yep. And they're a team who going to win the championship without him with Andrew Wiggins in that same role. So they went to 2 finals before Durant, and they lost the one in their near perfect season against LeBron when they blew the 3-1 lead. Go figure. But they got the 2 with Durant. Durant is a guy who he's never going to win another ring. He keeps trying to put together these super teams to try to, to quiet those whispers about his legacy and having to go to Golden State to get the ring. But he's not going to get another one because I don't frankly think that he's that kind of player. That, again, might be a scorching hot take. Some people think he's the best player on the planet. I'm not there. I can't get there. Where does this put, like, what does Golden State's success this season, what does it do to Kevin Durant's legacy?
So Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant, right? Like, the only person that can fight Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. It's hard because he needs people around him to succeed. And what I mean
think
by
he needs the Golden State Warriors around him to succeed. Really?
Well, that's what I mean is that he can take over a game and win, but if he doesn't have anybody else scoring the 10s and the 20s, he can't take over that game all by himself. And as years have gone on, it kind of showed me that when he was with Golden State, like, how could you argue the talent around him? I mean, you had a healthy Clay Thomas, a healthy Draymond Green. I think Wiggins was still on that team, or he left. He left, right?
No. Wiggins is there now.
No, okay.
Iggy?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Iguodala. So Iguodala,
yeah.
That's what I was thinking about. I'm sorry. It was Iguodala. But if you look at those 4 players alone, right, they outright themselves can win a championship game together. And Kevin Durant wasn't the missing piece. Kevin Durant just added to the piece. They just added more pieces. And as you stated, if he wasn't there, Harrison Barnes was doing the same thing.
Yeah, they needed Kevin Durant, not at all. He needed them.
No, exactly. And that, to me, is like, I think when you look at all the players in the NBA today in this era, you have to say Kevin Durant is maybe top 10, at least top 10 in the league now.
I'll give him even top 5.
I was thinking that, but
he's the best.
No, I don't think he's the best. No, there's no chance he's the best. There's no way. How can you say that? I mean, yeah, if you look at points and all that, fine, whatever. But you have Seth Curry too. You have Klay Thompson. You have Luka Doncic now. So you can't really say he's the best player in the league.
Yeah. So Luka is shifting the dynamics here as far as if you want to rate top 5 players, because that dude is top 2. And I'm not sure if he's 1 or 2, but he's top 2 best players.
Right. And you also have Giannis, and you have Joker and you have Embiid, right? So at the end of the day,
I mean, that's the top 5 right there. And the order is up for debate.
Exactly. So his legacy, Kevin Durant's legacy is not tarnished, I would say, but you cannot call him the best. And if you do, you have to tell me or tell us. I might put
Tatum over Embiid.
Jason, you have to put Jason Tatum. 6. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And the only reason why is Jason Tatum actually found his way. He found his way finally. After we've been saying it, you've been saying it, I've been saying it.
I mean, sure, he's only 24, but I saw this in him in the beginning. He didn't see it. If he saw what I saw, he would have been this guy all along.
Yep. And the crazy thing is, though, right? Like, I also feel that if people say Kevin Durant is the best, then tell me why. You can't just say a statement and say, okay, he's the best. Okay, fine. Okay, he has 2 rings. Okay, great. But if you take him out of that equation, does he still get the rings? No,
never.
So,
like, not 1.
No. And now he's in Brooklyn.
Well, okay. You know what? I actually believe that if that OKC's team stays together, that they get a ring. I think they get there, but he bailed because because unless I'm mistaken, I think the previous season, I think they had a 3-1 lead on the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, and they blew it.
Right.
And so after that is when he jumped ship, because he didn't think they had enough to get over the top. He didn't think the team was going to do enough to get them there. That team should have stayed together, and then his legacy is a different discussion.
True.
But I mean, if I had $1 million, I'd be a millionaire. Where we are is where we are, and what it is what it is. And I mean, to me, like I said, it's just in my mind, and maybe you agree with me, but everybody else is talking about, he's the best player in the world.
He can't be the best player in the world. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't even consider LeBron to be the best player in the world.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, because the talent pool now has widened so much. Like, because when we were growing up basketball, you could clearly see who were the greatest players, who were like the role players, and who are the scrubs. Now the talent pool has 10 times expanded. You can't just put a piece in and say, okay, he's the greatest because his name is Kevin Durant. 10 years ago, I can say yes, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But now you can't. You can't. No. I'm sorry. And with his injuries that has happened recently, he can't. I mean, maybe it's just me.
He's the NBA scoring leader this season if he plays enough games. He just didn't play enough games.
Exactly.
So that's the issue at this point in his career. But he's up there. He's what, 38? I mean, I give the man credit for what he's doing at this point in his career.
Yeah. So, I mean, he won't be. I'll put it this way: he if he does choose to leave Brooklyn and go anywhere else, he won't be a bench player coming off the bench. He'll be a starter. Yeah, he'll be a starter.
No, yeah. No, Kevin Durant is, like I said, he's top 5 right now. I mean, but he's not.
Not the fit. Yeah.
We can go ahead and switch gears now. I'll go ahead.
No. What I was thinking was, you say a lot of like things to think about, because at the end of the day, a lot of people do think he is the best, but they don't say why he's the best. because and
Yeah.
that's what and that's the issue. And that's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's just it to me. It's a name and
Right.
a name thing at this point. It's not who a player actually is anymore.
Correct.
But we can go and switch gears into the other half of the bracket there with the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics headed to Game 7 here. A series that really should be over. Boston blew that game last night. But go ahead and give me your thoughts on that one.
I just don't know what's wrong with them. I just don't know what's like it's like they wanted to lose that game somehow to get to Game 7 and to have this miraculous blowout Game 7. Because if you look at it, it's like they'll lose one game, they blow out the team the next game. They'll lose the game, they blow out the team the next game. So it's like, all right, like, are they getting fatigued now, or is the energy kind of gone? Is it like they're just so like they put all their energy in the Milwaukee series, now it's kind of showing the fatigue? Or is it just that they're not mentally in the games anymore? Is because maybe the Heat find a way to stop them. Maybe the Heat find a way to stop them, or they're just making dumb mistakes too. So
I think you're also they're running up against playoff Jimmy.
Yeah,
that buzzsaw that is Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. Draymond Green said that there are certain guys who are 82 game players. You know, you get the same level of play out of them every night. And some guys are 16 game players where they only up that level in the playoffs. And he said Jimmy Butler is kind of one of those players where in the playoffs he takes it up a notch, and he's that kind of player who can, he hasn't done it yet, but who can eventually get you over the top. And that might be where the Miami Heat are headed this season. I can't say that it's not going to happen because they're still in it. Jimmy Butler has elevated his level of play, and I've mentioned before that he's one of those players who's very frustrating because some nights he can bring it. Like last night, he had 47 points. A previous game in the season, the series, I think he had 41. He's the kind of guy who can do that every night. He just doesn't. I don't know why. I know he's a little banged up right now too, and he has had injury concerns throughout his career. I mean, that showed itself this season. He missed a bunch of games. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's just a health thing where he doesn't bring it every night. But for some reason, and that's why I said before that I can't put him in that elite category, because to me, elite players bring it every night. Not just, okay, we're here at the end, I'll give you a great Game 7, but then in Game 1, I'll have 15 points. That's Jimmy Butler. Elite players don't do stuff like that. Elite players is like Joker. Every night you can mark them down for 30. Every night it's going to happen. Jimmy, you don't know what you're going to get. Well, I shouldn't say that. In a big game, you know what you're going to get. But what about the other games matter too? Like you need that every night. And last night, the Heat had the game was closed back and forth. Then the Heat went up big, and then Boston started hitting some shots. Finally, Horford hit a big 3 late. Jaylen Brown ended up fouling out. That hurt them. So, but Tatum, we can get to predictions, but this series it's been ugly. But there's also been some bright spots too. So, where are we going to end up here?
So, in my opinion, they play in Boston tomorrow, right?
No, Miami.
Oh, they play in Miami tomorrow.
Yeah,
it can't be right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah,
all
right. Yeah.
Okay, so you gotta go back. Ooh, this is a tough one. I'm still taking to my guns. I picked Boston, and I think they're gonna pull it out. I think Boston's gonna come in there and blow the doors off of Miami. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a fight. I think I'll put it this way: it's going to be close for the first 2 quarters. They're going to go back and forth.
It's a good game, man. Just a good game.
I don't think. I mean, hopefully it is because it's a Game 7. People always hype up Game 7s, but
I don't know what Hero's injury is. He's been out like all series. I don't know if he would.
It could be a shooting hand, maybe, or something.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah,
but I haven't heard anything about him playing though. So
I'm going to say this: Jason Tatum's he's like, because he can smell the finals, and Boston hasn't been in the finals for a while, and he's going to take over the game, and he's going to score his 30-40 points with the help of Jaylen Brown, and I think Al Horford's going to have a double-double. And once that happens, I mean, they're unstoppable. They're going to get back to the old Boston. They're going to start playing more defensively. And I was hoping they'll hit a 3-point shot so they can make that game a little bit more closer. I was waiting for that to happen, but unfortunately it didn't. But I think they play better on the road than they do at home because I think you have that added pressure. So that pressure's a little bit off, but they still have to, when they're up by 10, they have to go up by 20. They have to end the game by 20. So I'm picking Boston to win by 10.
Nice. So I want to pick Boston. Like I've been saying, I thought the winner of that Bucks Celtics series was going to win it because I didn't think the Heat really had a shot. But here we are in game 7. So Hero, before the last game, he was trying to go and he couldn't go. He has a groin strain. Don't know what the status is for game 7. That hasn't been updated yet. I wouldn't expect him to play, but if he does play, that'll be a big difference maker. He means a lot to that team. He has a huge role. They really need him. Either way, I think the Heat are going to win.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Like I said, I want the Celtics. I want to see Celtics Warriors. The Heat are just boring. I don't like them. Bam Adebayo hasn't had a good series at all. They really need a lot more from him. He's just been a dud, complete dud. And with Hero out, they need his role to be expanded, and he just hasn't brought it. Oladipo's played okay. Lowry played all right last night. He got hurt towards the end. Don't know what his status is going to be. But they're just, I want to see the Celtics. But I think Jimmy Butler is going to will them to a win. He's a freaking flat out dog. And in the game 7, I got to pick the dog. I got to pick the dog and the better coach. And nothing against Udoka, but Spoelstra has rings. That's the better coach. I got to go with that. In the game 7, got to go with the best player in this series has been Jimmy Butler. Even though Tatum is the most, he's the best player. But in this series, Jimmy Butler,
you can't.
Like I said, inconsistent. But he's in a game 7, he's going to bring it. He's going to leave
problem
it all
is,
out there.
So you have to, what you stated was true. Like, is he going to be that Jimmy Butler in game 7?
In a game 7, I expect nothing less.
You expect him to be, because I have a feeling that he may lay a dud. He may lay a dud in game 7.
He talks so much that if he goes out there and lays an egg in game 7, he can't talk anymore. That all his talk has to stop, because this is the stage where this is where playoff Jimmy shows up. So to me, his legacy is on the line right here. So,
100%.
But I think he's going to get it done, though. Unfortunately, I want the Celtics, but I think Jimmy's going to get it done.
Yeah, I think the Celtics are going to find a way to shut him down, and his talking is going to stop from going forth after game 7. What time is the game? Is it an afternoon game? I would think
it would be in prime time, but let me see.
Yeah, I always forget because the NBA is kind of funny because they used to have like afternoon games, and I'm like, I know, and then most recently, if it's like a high powered series, they'll have
it is at 8:30 your time tomorrow night.
Oh wow, okay, so it is like 8:30 prime time. Okay,
that'll be nice.
Dang, that's gonna be like
with the holiday being the next day, I might have to get out downtown or something and watch that. Check that out. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
But
nice.
Yeah, we can get into it in a later segment. I was gonna go down a whole different highway here. We can get into that in a later segment. It's gonna come up later. But we can go ahead and wrap things up here. Please like, follow, subscribe, and support. We're the Talking Hats, and we're gonna switch gears here into some NFL action coming up. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.